Bond. James Bond.
In case I don't see ya. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Did we just become best friends?
Yup! Sublime!
What are you using that for? I don't think it means what you think it means.
Tear me apart, Lisa!
But mostly I hate the way I don't hate you. Not even close. Not even a little bit. Not even at all.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
Hi, friends, and welcome to another episode of You Haven't Seen That, a movie discussion podcast where we introduce our friend Ben to movies he should have seen a long time ago. I'm your host, Amanda.
I'm Geoff.
And I'm Ben.
And today we are discussing Saving Private Ryan. And stick around until the end. We'll be talking about our top 4 movies from 1998.
Saving Private Ryan. As U.S. troops stormed the beaches of Normandy, 3 brothers lie dead on the battlefield, with a 4th trapped behind enemy lines. Ranger Captain John Miller and 7 men are tasked with penetrating German-held territory and bringing the boy home. Released in July of 1998, the number 1 song, "The Boy Is Mine" by Brandy and Monica.
Classic.
It held number 1 for weeks.
Yeah, it was,
Weeks. Harry Potter 2 was published right around this time, aka Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. France won their first ever World Cup. And there were some famous birthdays in the Hollywood space, and I guess pop culture space as well, such as Kaylee Spaney, Maya Hawke, and Malia Obama.
Nice.
So I said the pop culture space. Directed by Steven Spielberg, this movie stars Tom Hanks, Tom Sizemore, Edward Burns, Barry Pepper, Jeremy Davies, Adam Goldberg, Giovanni Ribisi, Vin Diesel, and Matt Damon, while also featuring appearances from actors such as Paul Giamatti and Ted Danson. With a $70 million budget, this movie grossed $482 million at the global box office. This opened number 1, dethroning The Mask of Zorro. It held the number 1 slot at the box office for 4 straight weeks before being dethroned by Blade. This finished as the number 2 new movie of 1998 at the box office, only behind Armageddon. I emphasize new, because technically the number 1 movie of 1998 at the box office was Titanic, which released in December of 1997. This movie was loved by critics, 94% on Rotten Tomatoes, 91 on Metacritic. This is Spielberg's 3rd highest rated movie on Metacritic, only behind Schindler's List and E.T. This is also his 7th highest grossing movie at the box office. This movie went on to great award success, where it was nominated for 11 Academy Awards and won 5. It won Director for Spielberg. That was his 2nd Best Director Oscar. Won Cinematography, Editing, Sound, and Sound Effects Editing. And it was nominated in Picture, Actor, Original Screenplay, Dramatic Score, Art Direction, and Makeup, losing most of those categories that it lost in to either Life is Beautiful or the Best Picture winner from this year, Shakespeare in Love.
That was pretty controversial, right? That Shakespeare in Love beat Saving Private Ryan, or at least is controversial now.
Looking back on it, it's not looked upon fondly. It's definitely a case where at the time, I believe Shakespeare in Love was a Weinstein Company movie, and Harvey Weinstein was really good at getting his movies nominated for Oscars and winning Oscars and taking those sort of prestige movies to the next level. Now, granted, Shakespeare in Love was 9th at the box office in 1998. So it's not like it was this unknown film that was barely seen by anybody. This movie was seen by a lot of people. So famous and everything kind of tied together. But looking back on it, I think if the Academy had a redo, I'm pretty sure Saving Private Ryan would be the pick for Best Picture.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right. Well, Ben, why don't you tell us your history with Saving Private Ryan?
I do not really have much of a history with this movie. I followed movies and movie releases back in the 90s pretty religiously. Like, I think I've talked about this before. I'd call the movie theater and find out their showtimes just because I was into lists and I'd look at the newspapers and stuff. So I certainly was aware of it, but obviously wasn't going to see it as a 11-year-old. And never really, I actually didn't even know. First of all, I didn't know all the people who were in it. I knew about Tom Hanks and Matt Damon and a few others, and then I also did not really actually know the plot. It's pretty clear from the title once you watch the movie. But I actually didn't know Matt Damon was Private Ryan. I thought maybe Tom Hanks was Private Ryan. I didn't know. I didn't know much about it. I knew it was a World War II movie, and I knew some of the people in it, and I knew it was very acclaimed. But I that's about it.
All right. What about you, Geoff?
Shout out to lists, by the way, Ben. When you say I just loved lists and calling people, I'm like, man of my heart.
Oh yeah, sure. It was. I mean, I've loved lists since
Oh yeah,
since I knew what lists were.
Lists, rankings. Oh my gosh, if y'all scrub through my letterbox, you would see so many lists. But my history with Saving Private Ryan would be, in a word, extensive. This is one of the sort of go-to movies on cable. I watched this movie regularly whenever it was on TV. If it was on TNT or FX or AMC or whatever was streaming it or showing it, God, the 1998, 1999 cable, not streaming. It was always the place where I would stop, whether I was watching by myself or I was watching with my dad. This was always something that I would definitely stop to see, regardless of when it was, whether it was in the middle of the movie, the beginning of the movie, or the end of the movie. Didn't matter when, it was staying on the TV. I've also seen this movie a number of times, start to finish. And the last time I watched this, I have it in my notes here, was about 2 years ago, and right around Memorial Day of 2024. So great timing for rewatching this.
Cool. Similar to Ben, I don't really have a history with this movie. I knew that it was a movie that existed and that it was a war movie. And that's probably about the extent of it. I didn't really know who was in this movie or the plot or anything besides the fact that it was a war movie, which was enough to tell me I wasn't interested in watching it. So, Geoff, why don't you give us your score?
Yeah, I'll be quick. This is it's hard to call this movie a favorite because of the subject matter, but this is one of my favorite movies of all time. I don't know if it's Spielberg's masterpiece, but it's singular masterpiece, but it's certainly in that conversation. I adore this movie. I don't ever find an issue with the runtime or anything like that. So I'm prepared to defend my stances around this movie, however it may come up during this conversation with whoever, but this is an easy 5 out of 5 for me.
All right. And what about you, Ben?
Okay, this is got to be the biggest gap ever between how good a movie is, how good I think it is, and how much I liked it. I think we talked about that. I think there was at least one other that we talked about that with. I can't remember what it was, but boy, this gap was very wide because I think it is a cinematic masterpiece and an artistic triumph. I did not enjoy it at all, though, and that is a personal thing. I fully recognize that is I don't like war movies. I don't like long battle scenes. It is a personal thing for me. So I'm really struggling with what to give this because if I'm saying how good of a movie it is, it's a 4.5 or above. If I'm saying how much did I like it, it's a 2 something. I don't know.
Take the average. Just take the average. It's fine.
I think I'm going to go 3.75 and be okay with that. I feel like I've generally erred on the side of my rankings, I feel reflect liking more than artistic triumph, but I am going to knock it up a few notches for the artistic triumph. So I feel okay about that, but that's a hard one to rank. And this isn't like The Godfather Part 2 or Chinatown where I'm what the heck do people see in this thing? This was I get it. It's just not for me.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I respect it.
Yeah, I'm going to 100% agree with you on that, Ben. No notes. Everything you said is exactly how I feel. I understand why people like it. I understand that it is a great movie. I didn't like it at all. I would probably give it like a 0.5 on my enjoyment. Having said that, I will give it a 3.5. So, it's getting quite a lot of points for me in the cinematography department.
I was about to say,
bump up for cinematic achievement.
I was about to say, if we were taking the averages, it's like, oh, Amanda like scored it super high on the quality scale.
Yeah.
Both of you did.
When we go through and do our end of year, I will not consider
It's
this
not going to be in my top 10.
This is going to be a 0.5 in my top 10.
It's not making my top 10, but
no, not at all.
So
would I like nominate it for Best Picture? Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was gonna say, so Ben, as someone, as you said, you don't like war movies and you don't like long battles. So being dropped into D-Day within 5 minutes.
I don't like long movies either. So there's a lot of strikes against it.
Oh my goodness.
I will say though, on a more serious note, I have been to the Normandy beaches and to that cemetery. And it is a very powerful place. I was a junior in high school when I went there. And like even a bunch of high school kids on a tour, like were very somber, very silent, and I very much have a distinct memory and some pictures from those beaches and from that cemetery. And it is a very powerful place. So I will say that.
I can imagine. I mean, the couple of times we've been to Arlington definitely feel the same way. So, and I know I've had family that's wanted to travel over to Europe to explore that sort of area. And
it's
check
like
that out.
It's almost like, I mean, the cemetery is very, somber because of the way I'm sure Arlington is and stuff. The beaches themselves feel like frozen in time. Like they haven't done anything to them, besides like a few plaques or things like that. Like,
right.
So they like they feel very much like, it's not like you go on some resort town and you can picture what it was like 100 years ago. Like you're like, this is what it looked like almost 100 years ago, 80 years ago.
I believe it. Yeah, I'm always floored by the way this movie starts because of the somber note and then going back in time. Funny that we're doing two movies like this.
It totally made me think of A League of Their Own.
In every way. Absolutely. Kind of going back in time like that. And almost being slight spoiler alerts for this movie if you haven't seen Saving Private Ryan, but misleading as well with how the movie starts and who we zoom in on here at the beginning or who we're introduced to and eventually what happens by the end. But the way this movie starts is just so intense. And to me, I had never seen anything like this the first time I saw this movie. And just I didn't know even how to process it the first time I saw it. I was like, whew, okay, I need like a breather. Especially because I feel like a lot of times when this movie was shown on cable, because I was 6 years old when this movie came out, I was not going to theaters to see Saving Private Ryan. But they didn't cut anything. Like they didn't take anything away. They just flashed warnings like before it would go to the movie because there was just so much to it and how involved it was. They're like, it's hard to take anything away from it. So I always admired the incredibly impressive way that it just drops you into this and then it really catapults you forward.
It's relentless for like the first 30 to 40 minutes. Like it is. I think there was a I mean the battle scene itself obviously goes for like half an hour and then like they finally like when they're walking together and they're having that conversation about gripes and I'm like, oh my gosh, was that a joke? And I paused the movie and it was 45 minutes in and I'm like, that's the first joke in this movie. And I get it, like it's a World War II movie, we don't need like, I'm not sure, I don't think they were going for jokes, but yeah, it's just relentless, like and I think even a lot of other very serious movies have more levity to them than this.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And then when we're taken off of Normandy and we start to follow the troop around as they go to see Ryan, that's when you start to hear jokes sprinkled in and everything.
And the camaraderie with the team and
exactly.
Like
and there's it's almost like their way of coping. And especially early on when they don't really, they're like, we survived D-Day. How can we, like, this is just a rescue mission. Like, whatever, dude, like this is fine. Until of course they get trapped in another city and get
right
and lose a member of the family. But yeah.
I think, I'm not somebody who has watched a lot of war movies. I'm sure, Geoff, you have seen more than Amanda or I have combined, I'm sure. But so maybe you can speak to this better than I can. But I feel like I'd be hard pressed to find a movie that shows like the terrors and horrors of war more than this, because I think, like, and it's interesting watching it, as I don't know what will be going on in the world when this episode releases, but when we're recording it, we're in the midst of war with Iran. And like, I feel like there's like this, like, from the American home base side of things, of like this gung-ho rah-rah military kind of thing that makes it all cool, that makes it all kind of macho. And like, you see this and you see like these 20-year-old soldiers crying out for their moms as they're dying, and like it just makes you like, I don't know, like, it just makes me think, like, why would anybody who's ever been in an actual battle, not in the military, but in an actual war and in a battle, like, ever want that to continue, or ever think that that's like a good option if any other options are possible? Because like, it's horrific.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is a very powerful anti-war movie.
Yeah.
And it's such a weird perception with a lot of movies, especially with how it's interpreted sometimes outside of it. But this is definitely a case of an anti-war movie. And there have been some really, really powerful movies, one I'm actually going to recommend here later on in this episode, that is tied to World War One. But there are a number of movies that kind of paint the terrors of war in the sense of, boots on the ground, kind of following people along. I think you have ones all the way from, World War One with Paths of Glory, which is from Stanley Kubrick, or even you could argue Apocalypse Now is almost like that, despite the sort of macho man idea of a lot of the characters in that. You follow Martin Sheen along in that, and dude's going insane the entire movie. And yeah, there are a lot of great. Black Hawk Down is another great example of this as well, from Ridley Scott and more Operation Desert Storm era as well. So I think there are definitely a number of cases with this, but I think the combination of the scale of this movie, from the large battle scenes of D-Day to these super intimate moments within the company, as we're following sort of the entire perspective of the war in just like a week's time, is really, really impressive. And why I think this is probably, if not the pinnacle of war movies, certainly of this sort of action-y focused anti-war movie. One thing I did want to kind of change it into on a lighter note a little bit. You noted, Ben, when you were talking about not knowing anything about this movie, and you were like, Tom Hanks, is he Private Ryan? How did you both react to when you find out about who Tom Hanks is, and then eventually, as the movie progresses, trying to discover who Private Ryan was going to be, and then eventually figuring out who Private Ryan was? How did you sort of react to all of that as it was going along? I don't know because I remember when I was sitting with Amanda, she made a comment about the first Private Ryan that we meet in this movie. So not sure like how surprised you were, or what your like gut reaction was as like you were running it along.
I feel like once it became clear, which wasn't for a while, that like those are the three brothers, and I was like, oh, okay, like Private Ryan is the other brother kind of thing, I didn't really put it all together, honestly, even until right before basically they went to the mother. And then that's when I kind of connected the dots there, and I was like, oh, okay, I understand what they're doing here and what it's about. And then when they found, quote unquote, found that first Private Ryan, I was like, whoa, they found him already? And then they were like, oh, I'm from, Minnesota. And I'm like, oh, wait, okay, that makes a lot more sense. And then I was like looking around, and it was in that scene where I was like looking around, and I was like, isn't Matt Damon in this movie? And I was like, that's who Private Ryan is. Like, it all kind of connected for me at the same time. Like, I was like, I haven't seen Matt Damon yet. I think he's Private Ryan.
Yeah, I had the same thought of like, oh my gosh, they found him already. I was like, that's weird. I thought it was going to take them a longer amount of time.
Like, well, that was easy.
Yeah, really. I'm like, what's the rest of this movie about then? So, and I did say to Geoff, before they revealed that Private Ryan, I was like, oh, I wonder who Private Ryan is, like the actor, and of course I didn't know who was in this movie. And so then when they showed that Private Ryan, I was like, Geoff, who is that guy? Like assuming that I should know that actor from something. And Jeff's like, actually don't know who that actor is. And I was like, that's weird. And yeah, then they were like, that's not him. So I didn't know that it was going to be Matt Damon, but it made sense when we got there. I was like, yeah, that tracks that he would be in this movie.
So when this movie was cast and Spielberg was figuring out everything with this, he cast Matt Damon in the role at the time because Damon at the time was an unknown. He had the face, he had the charm, he was doing good work in Hollywood. He was an unknown, so we're going to put him in the part. Little did Spielberg realize that after he cast it and filmed the movie, that Matt Damon would soon win an Oscar for writing Good Will
that's
Hunting.
Interesting. That probably did change I'm sure the marketing team was happy, but
for sure. Absolutely.
I understand why Spielberg may have been like a little bummed by that.
One other thing too, one of my favorite notes about how this movie was filmed and cast and everything was that all of the actors that played soldiers and went into World War II and everything like that and depicted in battle scenes had to go through a boot camp. They had to learn, they had to strategize, whatever, except for Matt Damon. Matt Damon was kept off to the side. He wasn't interacting with anybody. He didn't get to meet anybody, talk with anybody until he was called on set to start filming.
Oh, wow.
So it was a case where they wanted to keep him isolated. They wanted to keep him separated. And then was like, okay, here you go. And then everyone just PO'd at him in IRL, in real life, because it's like, oh, wait, you didn't have to go through all of this with us? What the heck? So
that makes sense, though.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And I think when we meet him and his sort of reactions to everything are all very natural and very expected of a soldier from the, stereotypically from the Midwest, and someone who's all of a sudden just lost all of his family. Is like, hey, what do I've got to lose? And as this movie is going on, I'm just trying to think to myself, like, how would I react if I was a member of the troop under Captain Miller? Finally meet this guy. We don't get to go home immediately. He doesn't want to go home just yet. Just all of that is really fascinating. Adds another magnificent layer to this movie that has been building and building and building and building all throughout, from subtle lines to notable moments to everything. It's quite the film to think about and to try to put yourself into people's shoes. So another reason I love it so much.
Here's the thing. Maybe the government was like this back in the 1940s, but I have a very hard time believing that the government would give any sort of crap that a mother had lost 3 of her sons and that they need to go on a special rescue mission to save her 4th son and bring him home.
I think it depends on who is making that call.
Well, I mean, just in general, I don't know. Like, that part felt far-fetched for me, and maybe it's just because I don't know a lot about the inner workings of the military. But I mean, the characters themselves too seemed very much like, why are we going to get this one guy?
Yeah, I think we're in a very different era now, obviously. But I think like now it would be like, if something like that were to happen, it'd almost be like, a viral thing or something. You know what I mean? Like, not the mission itself, but like, like the whole mother loses 3 of her sons kind of thing. Like, I don't know. It feels like back in that day, like it was like the call of one general to do that.
Yeah.
It wasn't something that was being like, debated to death over. It was like one, kind of sentimental, kind-hearted general who felt like they needed to do that. I think if it had run up the flagpole, I don't know that, the powers that be in Washington, even in the 40s, would have.
Well, they said it came from the chief of staff.
I guess that's true.
So You're right. Did come from a higher up. And I know they kept saying that it was like a PR.
It doesn't feel like it got debated to death, I guess is what I'm saying.
Right.
Like, it feels like it was just.
Yeah, no, definitely not, which felt weird, that just this lady was like, oh, look at this. And he's like, oh, yes, something must be done about this.
Yeah.
And them kind of calling it like a PR mission, like also didn't really like, I don't know, that I didn't know how to like sit with that, because I'm like, in what way? Like, are you trying to win back people at home and be like, look, we're not like heartless, or you know what I'm saying? Like, I just wasn't
Yeah.
fully clear on that part, which, you know, is kind of the crux of the whole movie, but it's fine.
No, that's fair. That's a fair question, I think. I was going to ask. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jeff.
I think the intention of it was to almost show that the humanity in like can break through in war even at the top, was at least my sort of interpretation, is that not everything about war is just heartless killing and machinery and whatever, and that's the way, that's almost like a different perspective into it, and almost I idolize or idealize like almost fairy tale sort of perspective to it. And like it also could be said it is like a way to win people over, or make headlines saying like soldiers rescue son of heart-stricken mother or whatever. And I don't know, and they're
It's
looking for
interesting because
headlines.
you don't think now, like, I feel like you don't think that World War II had a lot of like difficulty with the PR side of things. But I'm sure it did in the time. You know, I'm sure what's been
Oh,
kind of
for sure.
sanitized over the years. Like, you don't think of it though, like Vietnam, that was like super controversial. Like, I feel like the general history lesson tells us that like Americans were supportive of this effort from the beginning. I'm sure that wasn't the case on a case by case basis, but
for sure. I
Yeah.
think a lot of it had to probably do with the fact of who the quote unquote enemy was in this case. And you see, you're going up against Adolf Hitler and Benito Mussolini. Pretty hard to, what are we going to do? Say no to going after those guys, right? So maybe that's the idea of it. But I'm sure there was a contingency at the time that was saying, hey, look, just all war is wrong. This is
Right.
Europe's thing to do. But I don't know.
Right. Amanda, I was going to ask you, because I have an answer for this for myself, but what is it about war movies that you don't like?
That's a good question. Well, as everyone knows, I don't love gore, and that also extends to violence. I don't enjoy watching, even like Jeff, if I watch a hockey game with Jeff and like a fight breaks out, I hate it. I'm like, what are we in the freaking like Roman Empire? People are like, fight, fight, fight. Like, I'm like, what is happening here?
But what about when two girls were fighting in the cafeteria in high school?
I still hated that. No, thank you. It makes me very uncomfortable. Very conflict avoidant. In addition to that, I in general am not like a history person. I don't find it interesting. I find it really hard to remember anything about history. If you like, Jeff was like, "Oh, this is D-Day." And I was like, "Oh, is it?" Okay. Like, I'm like, I have no idea. I wouldn't have known that if he hadn't said anything to me. So it's really a large combination of a lot of things.
Okay.
What about you, Ben?
Yeah, why is that?
It's interesting because I feel like my answers are quite different. I mean, I love history, you know, so like that part of it is always going to be interesting to me. I think for me, a lot of it has to do with not specifically war movie scenes, but action scenes. I'm not a big action scene person, so I don't love it in like, you know, Tom Cruise movies any more than I like it here. You know what I mean? Like, I just get kind of bored by action sequences. I think because for me, I'm so like into dialogue and words and things like that like that's how I connect with things. That's, you know, that's why like shows like, you know, Succession or Mad Men or, you know, like these very well scripted things are the things that always, and I don't think Saving Private Ryan is a bad script, but I just think like that's where I connect with movies, is in conversations and interactions and character development in that way. And not that there isn't character development happening in this movie, but it's just not in a way that I connect with, I think is probably the number one reason. And then like the violence and the gore is something I can take or leave. Like, I've never felt strongly about that. It doesn't make me squeamish or make me not want to like, doesn't make me want to like turn away, but I also don't need it in any of my movies. So little bit of that, but I think more of it has to do with like, why can't they just solve their problems by talking it through? You know, like I would be so much more interested in a war movie that like ping ponged between Washington DC and the headquarters at Germany. You know what I mean? Like that's like to me like what I would be interested in, not the actual action happening out in the fields.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think I'd probably be more interested in that as well. And I'll also agree with you that I do have a tendency to zone out during action scenes.
Yeah.
I won't say in all movies, but if it's like an action scene in any movie where it's like one of those situations where the camera is moving a lot of different places and it's hard to tell what's even happening, I'm just like, oh, why am I watching this right now? Like, just show me what happens at the end. I don't care. I can't tell who that is getting shot at. I can't tell what is happening. Who is that? Is that a good guy or bad guy running this way? I don't know.
And that's not like like I said, not contained to war movies. And I think you're right though, Amanda. I think it has to do with the number of people involved in it too. Like, because I totally am into like an action sequence in Die Hard where it's one guy against one guy, and they are, because then I know exactly what I'm following. Like I know, you know what I mean. But when it's like a giant army, or it doesn't have to be war, it can be, you know, like Fast and the Furious or other things with huge numbers of people that I just like, I lose track of who people are.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
I've appreciated listening to this perspective from the sidelines. I've purposely tried to keep quiet because I think this is I have a different take on that than you both, but I agree with both of I completely understand both of your perspectives and why you feel the way that you do. Also, Amanda, I do apologize when we watch hockey together because side note, we are recording this before the Buffalo Sabres have started their Stanley Cup playoff run. So here's hoping by the time this airs,
they'll still be in
alive. They'll still be alive. But I think it's very interesting hearing both of your perspectives. For me, war and action movies were some of the first movies that I gravitated towards or were introduced to when I was a kid. Just naturally staying up late with my dad watching whatever is on AMC or TNT. That's how I got introduced to this movie. A couple of the big ones I can think of, a lot of the Westerns with big, grand scales, such as The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, or like a Stagecoach, even from the 30s. The Patriot is probably the first notable war movie that I can like think of in my brain, like a true American war movie that I'm like, I watched that probably way too early to see it. To see a dude's head get blown off by a cannonball. My dad has the VHS and he showed that to me once. He's like, Geoff, you got to see this. And I was definitely maybe a little too young for that, but it was cool. It was a very pivotal moment. But there's something about war movies, especially with taking on sort of the soldier perspective. And this almost ties in to the opposite of what the messaging of a movie like this is, but they're almost portraying the oftentimes man that a lot of men almost want themselves to be or envision themselves to be. The last time I saw this movie, I was going back through my notes. It was in conjunction with a small group, and sorry to bring religion into this, but small group from my church, where a couple guys and we were reading a book called Wild at Heart, which talks about what is the tagline? Discovering the secret of a man's soul. And
you had that like right next to your desk. Look at that. You were like ready for that. Look at that.
Ready to go. I was ready to go because I remembered because I took a note of it. But when we sat down the first time when we were talking about this book, the guy who was kind of leading our conversation, who had read this book multiple times, he suggested a few movies to pair with this book, especially because there are a number of movies referenced throughout this. So one of them he referenced was Saving Private Ryan. Another ones include Braveheart, Gladiator, Dances with Wolves. And there's very similar themes to a lot of those movies where there is a lead male protagonist sort of leading a group of other men to a victory to achieve. And one of the big things in this book is that in the heart, what does it say here? In the heart of every man there are three things: a desperate desire for a battle to fight, an adventure to live, and a beauty to love. Now, this movie tackles two of those three themes. And so oftentimes when I'm seeing myself with this, it's like, oh, I can try to picture myself in Captain Miller's shoes or anyone in his troop. And even in the action scenes, I know there have been times where I'll go to bed and I'll dream of different fights from movies or action scenes and almost envision myself in them. So a lot of war movies sort of channel that feeling, not just within me, but I'm sure in a lot of other men. So that's where I think the appeal comes from. And I know that's where the appeal comes from me. But I also agree that with both of you in terms of how you both sort of understand movies and what movies you tend to like and gravitate towards. Listen, a bad war movie or a bad action movie really sticks out like a sore thumb. So believe me, we're aligned there. So, but I do love
It's interesting to hear you say that, because I think that kind of, and then maybe that runs, like, that's just something I can't quite, I mean, obviously, like, you are a good person. You are not like a war hawk type individual, but it's interesting to hear you say, like, oh, I could see myself in that. I could like picture myself being the hero in that situation. Whereas like for me, like, I'm like, that looks horrific. Like everything about that looks like I don't want to be anywhere near that. And, hero or not, like, and, but I think that what you're expressing, there are some people in much, with less less heart to them, or less who are in maybe high, maybe positions of power, who see that as well, and maybe take the wrong lessons from a movie like this. Not that you're doing that, but I think that does speak to a mentality that I just don't share and can't really grapple with, or can't really like put myself in that mindset.
Oh, absolutely. I'm just picturing, the first thing I thought of when you bring up this was Barry Pepper's character, Private Jackson, the sniper. As he is taking people out, he's saying prayers to himself, or he's asking God for guidance in those moments, which I think moments like that can be misconstrued for sure, where it's like, oh, this is going to give you the power, but it's also kind of like that perspective of like, maybe he's scared in a lot of cases. Maybe it's like, hey, like, I have this skill set, but I'm scared of this situation. And it's also a misinterpretation of this, because it's a very skewed sort of thought and can definitely be misconstrued if taken in the wrong hands.
Yeah.
I will say I don't know if it's my favorite war movie of all time, but one of my favorite war movies of all time is a movie called Dr. Strangelove. And I know I've talked about it in this podcast. Ben, that would be my recommendation for you if you're looking for a talky war movie that bounces in between a number of different places.
Yeah.
I didn't like that one either.
I was struggling to think, because when we were discussing like possible top fours at the end, and one of the things Geoff suggested was top 4 war movies, like, I don't know that I can name one that I like.
That's fair enough. I appreciate that perspective, and thank you for steering the conversation away from that.
Yeah, same. Yeah. I don't know. I told Geoff, I was like, I definitely can't make a top 4 of war movies.
No,
absolutely not. My dad used to watch them all the time, and I hated it, because it was definitely like, back in the day, it's like whatever dad was watching was what the whole house was watching, especially before like I had my own TV in my own bedroom and whatever, which I know is like hard to believe, right? There was only like one TV in the house.
I know, it was the time.
Yeah.
I was thinking about like, I have one funny thing and one serious thing. I want to, at least these are the last 2 things I have. I'm sure maybe you guys have other things still, but the funny thing for me is I was having a real hard time with like 90s sitcom people being involved in this. So like Giovanni Ribisi, he did a great job in the death scene, but I'm like, that's Phoebe's brother. And then Adam Goldberg too, who was Eddie on Friends. Like, I was like, he's such a doofus anytime I've seen him in any TV thing. And then I could not take Ted Danson being in this seriously. Like, I'm sorry. Like, he is a great actor. He has done so many good things, and he's played villains extremely well. If you've seen him on Damages, he's not always goofy. He can do suave, obviously, as he did in Cheers. He can do goofy and sinister in The Good Place. He can do straight up villainous in a show like Damages. I could not take him in a war setting and with a soldier's uniform. I was like, no, Ted Danson, this is not your thing.
Yeah.
It's like the first time I've ever not bought a Ted Danson performance.
I agree. I was a little taken aback by some of the casting. I mean, I thought like ultimately everyone did like a good job,
Yeah.
but there
He
were
did
some
fine. I just
people
couldn't
that,
with him.
yeah, no, some people that showed up, I was like, really? But I didn't know if that was just my perspective being colored by what I know in 2026 of these
Yeah,
actors
yeah.
versus
Well, and that's
like,
some of the younger, but like Ted Danson already had been on Cheers. You know what I mean? Like this wasn't
Right.
like, I don't
There
know.
were-
I couldn't, and I love Ted Danson, but I could not take him seriously in this.
There were a number of times where I would turn to him and be like, Amanda, I was also being kind of a jerk. I was like, Amanda, do you know who that is? Do you know who that is? And I would just wait for her to respond and be like, is that like the first case where she got it pretty quickly was like, is that Paul Giamatti? I was like, yeah, it's Paul Giamatti, who I think played his persona like exactly how I could envision Paul Giamatti as a World War II soldier, guy with hurting ankles and just struggling, which is a testament to, hey, we just brought in the everyman into this war at this point. You weren't just like essentially super soldiers at this point.
Yeah.
And but Vin Diesel, this was so early in Vin Diesel's career. This is him trying to break through and go the prestige route. So it's
And then he bailed.
it's like, that was too hard, guys. I got
don't do the
killed.
pacifier.
I need to go steal VCRs, DVD players.
oh my gosh, Ben, what was your serious
Oh,
point?
the serious thing was, one of the things I was struck by was, I mean, obviously this is the second week in a row that we've had the book ending of the reunion type, or older version of the character appearing, not a reunion, I guess, in this case, but older version of the character. But I was thinking about how many more World War II soldiers were still alive in 1998 compared to now.
Mhm.
Like, and
Big
how
time.
that entire generation has died off pretty substantially in the last almost 20 years since this movie was made.
Certainly.
And there's very few left. And I thought that was like a little thought provoking.
Oh, absolutely. I think so much of this, well, to bounce off of that note, it actually reminded me that there were, I know there have been articles written about this, but I remember when this movie first was shown, they would show this movie to like veterans groups and former soldiers and everything, especially World War II veterans. And there were stories about them having visceral reactions a lot of time to like the D-Day stuff and how realistic it was and everything. So you saying that just made something like kind of click in my brain there, Ben, as you were talking. And that is a really good point. I think too, especially at the end of the movie, when we see the grown-up Private Ryan standing by Miller's grave and just saying like, hey, I've lived a good life. That was the case with so many of those World War II veterans as well. They would just go back home, right back to jobs and everything, and probably didn't live extraordinary lives, but certainly were extraordinary people to do what they did. So,
and you
I
can
think,
get like how they would feel the guilt or the, like that they made it back, and these people they went to war with didn't. Like, that's got to be a very difficult thing.
It still is. Every time I see this movie, that last sort of sequence really weighs heavily on me, especially, and this time I try to notice it as much as possible as it's built up. I mean, there are so many moments, like there's a line that the normally cool-headed Captain Miller throughout this movie, he talks about losing men or whatever that he's led with with other commanding officers shortly after the invasion on the beach, but he's sitting in the church with the Sergeant Horvath, and he says, what's the line? Here it is, quote, "I wouldn't trade 10 Ryans for one Caparzo," aka Vin Diesel's character. And constant moments like that where you see characters die on missions, whether it be because Captain Miller led them on almost like a side quest, or they, run into other issues with other troops. Like and then obviously as Captain Miller is dying and whispers to Ryan, like, earn this, earn it. You think about that a lot. What do you need to do? Do you need to cure cancer or what? But I think I'd like to think that if Miller were still like alive or like looking down at Private Ryan's life, it would be like, hey, you lived a good family life. You lived the life I would probably be living if it weren't for being a soldier, like a teacher in middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania, with the wife and kids and whatever. And honestly, it's a pretty good life. I think you've earned it for sure. So a lot of those moments, it just, you saying what you said there, Ben, just made me go down this rabbit hole there a little bit, especially thinking about the former, veterans that have unfortunately passed on since this movie's come out or since then. But yeah, it's a really, really interesting thing to think about there.
I had to sidetrack to my final two thoughts here. I had to look up what foobar meant because no one ever explained it in the movie, but they kept using it. So for anyone listening who doesn't know, it is effed up beyond all recognition.
Yep.
And it's also an Arnold Schwarzenegger Netflix show.
Yeah, I was just about to say that.
Is it?
Yep.
It is.
That's funny.
Not one of my recommendations.
Okay, good.
The other question I had that's kind of silly is, so when the German guy was talking to the translator and he just kept like spouting off American phrases to try to prove that he liked America. And he said cool beans. And I was like, is cool beans even a thing in the 1940s? Like, are people actually saying that?
I can't believe that they wouldn't have checked that on a movie like this.
I don't know, but I looked it up and it said that it wasn't until like the 1960s that people started like using it. And I'm like, that's weird. I don't know. It just, everything else he said was like fine, but cool beans just really stuck out to me.
Yeah,
but I mean, I agree with you. I feel like it has to be from something that this guy would have heard, some sort of media or something. But according to the interwebs, it wasn't like widely used until the 60s. So I don't know.
Huh.
Good to know.
But yeah, I was like, what's this guy saying cool beans for?
There's a Reddit thread about this.
Oh yeah.
Boy.
What do they have to say about it?
Yeah, let's dive in.
I'm reading through it right now.
I trust Redditors.
Said Steven Spielberg probably had some dramaturgy for Saving Private Ryan set in World War II for the youngins. The German POW uses that phrase as a means of placating the Americans. I'm guessing it's been around longer. I don't know.
All right.
The Reddit thread isn't about cool beans in Saving Private Ryan. It's about it's about with the origin of cool beans.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Gotcha.
Alrighty. Well,
I don't know. That's interesting.
Yeah. Anyways, those are the things I was paying attention to.
Apparently, a lot of millennials claim that they started it on the internet.
That doesn't surprise me.
Of course. Of course.
All right. Well, let's move into our recommendations. Geoff, why don't you give us our movies for this week?
Yeah. So I was trying to think of a few to recommend here that would probably try to be a little different because I know World War II has never been documented in film, like ever. But so I've got four here. I've got the first one being Steven Spielberg with World War II. And that would be Schindler's List, which is one of the big notable ones before Saving Private Ryan in terms of his sort of prestige and everything there. Another one would be Auteur's directing unique World War II movies, and that would be Dunkirk, directed by Christopher Nolan. Very interesting perspective about shout out Dunkirk. I just got that. No, we talk about that all the time with this whenever that movie comes up in conversation, but a very interesting perspective on the rescue mission of soldiers stranded in Europe by British forces. So depicts the war, a very focused perspective of the war by sea, by land, and by air. So real interesting movie there. Next one would be small, sort of what they deem to be probably meaningless missions that ultimately turned out to be pretty powerful and effective in terms of their scope. And that would be 1917, which was nominated for Best Picture in 2019, directed by Sam Mendes. It follows two World War I soldiers, essentially probably going like 5 miles in the course of a day to try to relay some news to other generals about to invade or charge into war and take on an attack. And it's pretty harrowing for only being a pretty focused plot. And then the last one is tying it back to the 2020s. and anti-war movies of the 2020s, probably the most notable one being Netflix's All Quiet on the Western Front, which came out in 2022. Yes, 2022? Yes, that was 22. Nominated for Best Picture, won Best International Feature, cinematography. I believe it also won score as well, and foreign language film, or international feature, excuse me. So, yeah, and I thought it was very, very effective and very, very well done. So those would be my movie recommendations to pair with Saving Private Ryan.
Great. Thank you. And what about our TV recs, Ben?
All right. Well, if you're looking for something war adjacent that's more talky, like Amanda and I might like, MASH might be your best option.
Good pick.
A very famous, probably the most famous war TV show, but it's a sitcom, so it's not. Although it does obviously have some very serious moments, but the most obvious, easily, is Band of Brothers / The Pacific, and then they did a more recent one called Masters of the Air, which is Hanks and Spielberg as executive producers. World War II. These were HBO miniseries. Band of Brothers was in the early 2000s. The Pacific, I believe, was in 2010. They were both on HBO, and then Masters of the Air was more recently on Apple. I have not seen any of those, but they are very much of a pair with Saving Private Ryan, to my understanding. Geoff, have you seen any of those?
Weirdly enough, I've never seen Band of Brothers or The Pacific, which is wild because I feel like I would love both of those shows. But no, I've never watched them, which is insane.
Well, my understanding is that they are very much in the same tone as this movie.
Oh, big time. And have a weird sort of sitcom TV cast thrown in there as well.
That's true.
I just picture David Schwimmer. That's all I can kind of envision is David Schwimmer in it.
So that would definitely be, if you're more into the war side of things, what I would go with.
Nice.
Cool. Thank you. Alrighty. Well, with that, it is time to move into our top 4. Woo! As I mentioned earlier, this week we decided to do our top 4 movies from 1998. It was quite a year, similar to when we did 1999. I miss those days, you know? So, Geoff, why don't you kick us off?
Awesome. So, honorable mentions. I'm just going to throw out a couple non-movie related honorable mentions to start. One of them being the TV show Whose Line Is It Anyway? And then one being the Mark McGwire Sammy Sosa home run chase of 1998. To follow up on our comments from last week's episode of A League of Their Own about roided up baseball. That was a time, that home run chase of 1998. So movie-wise, my honorable mentions, this is a controversial honorable mention, but it's just because I haven't seen it in a very long time. The Truman Show. That's only because I haven't seen it in a very long time. If I'm sure that if I revisited the Truman Show at any point recently, yes, it would be in this top 4. But just because of recency bias, it is not included in this list. Another one is The Prince of Egypt, one of those kind of beautiful animated movies, and one that I owned on VHS, still at my parents' house. And the music in that movie is so, so great. And then The Waterboy. We're going to take a complete 180 from all of those. Shout out Adam Sandler and Adam Sandler sports movies. All right. So number 4 is a movie we've done for this podcast, The Big Lebowski. Loved that movie so much when we talked about it. An absolute blast. I have a great, great time thinking about that movie, vibing in that movie. It rules. So go back to listen to our episode to hear full thoughts about it. Number 3 is one I know neither of you will have on your lists, but it's a movie called The Celebration. This is a Danish movie that is directed by a man named Thomas Vinterberg, who, for people that have been watching movies in the last 10 years, probably know from the movie Another Round, which went on to win Best International Feature at the 2020/2021 Oscars. It is a dark comedy, dark movie about the patriarch of a family celebrating his birthday, gets his whole family together, and his eldest son has to make a confession. That's all I'll really say about it, but it's filmed in a very handheld camera style that at first I thought was potentially going to be distracting, but the story is so good and powerful that it didn't matter by the end of it. So a movie with crazy twists and turns, one that completely caught me off guard. Absolutely will recommend it. Insane movie. Like jaw on the ground as reveals are happening throughout it. Number 2, we're going to take another 180 from that. We're going to talk about Mulan. And I'll Make a Man Out of You still hits. One of the most pivotal sort of Disney Renaissance movies. And for me, I remember going to see this movie in theaters. Loved it then. Still love it now. And then number 1 is this little movie called Saving Private Ryan that I won't talk anymore about.
All right. Good list. Ben, let's hear yours.
So when I was reading through the releases of 1998, Amanda, I do miss the days of the 90s, but I feel like by 90s standards, maybe not the strongest movie year. Like when I was reading through, I was like, I've seen some of these and I happily made it top 4, but then I was like, there's not like a ton on here that I'm like, oh boy, I need to see this movie. I need to, you know what I mean? Like, or this is like, I felt like still better than a lot of current years in terms of movies, but I just feel like compared to some other years from the 90s, maybe not at one of the strongest. Just my opinion. That's just my opinion, man. The one I most want to see that I haven't seen from this list is The Wedding Singer. Because I love the musical that Amanda saw with me.
Are you sure about that?
Yep, I'm 100% sure you saw it. All right, my honorable mentions are The Big Lebowski, which I like, but not enough to put in the top 4. Air Bud Golden Receiver. I believe I put Air Bud on one of my lists for something one time. So maybe when we did 1997 movies.
When Air Bud, when the new Air Bud movie,
the new one's coming out. Yeah, I'm there.
Wait to revisit.
I'm there.
Can't wait to revisit. Air Bud movies.
And then my other one is a different Tom Hanks movie from 1998. You've Got Mail. Which is more my Tom Hanks vibe than Saving Private Ryan or A League of Their Own, if we're being honest. All right. My number 4, Geoff already mentioned, number 4 is Mulan. I actually remember seeing it in the theaters as well. I saw it at a drive-in, though, the first time when I was in that summer of 1998. And I believe it was double paired with, Dr. Dolittle, but I think I fell asleep during Dr. Dolittle. And great music in Mulan. Shout out, obviously, I'll Make a Man Out of You is a bop that has stood the test of time. And then Reflection, starring Christina Aguilera. Gotta love it. It's not like up there with Beauty and the Beast, Lion King, Little Mermaid, Aladdin, but it's like the next tier down for me.
Yeah.
Number 3 is Pleasantville, which I don't know if either of you have seen. It's not. Very cool movie. And it's been a long time since I've seen it, but it's I should have looked this up before I started talking because I wanted to recap.
Oh, this is so up your alley.
Just reading
the description. Like this is you to a T.
Yeah. So it is Reese Witherspoon, right?
Yes.
Hang on. Okay.
Reese
I shouldn't be talking.
Witherspoon.
Tobey Maguire and Reese Witherspoon. Yep. And they wind up trapped in a 1950s TV show in a Midwest town. And of course it's like a real good kind of like, circumventing the perfect 50s thing. So it's not as much, honoring it the way something in Back to the Future does. It's more kind of criticizing it. And it's all black. When they're in those scenes, it's black and white. I think I should revisit it because it's been, maybe we'll have to do that for one of you haven't seen that months, but I remember really liking it. I saw it not in 1998. I saw it years later, but very good. Number 2, The Truman Show. Geoff mentioned. This is a movie I have seen more recently, and it definitely holds up. I got caught watching it on like Pluto TV one day and just got hooked in, like old school, like flipping through the channels and finding it when I was on Pluto. And it's a really, really thought-provoking movie and a fantastic Jim Carrey performance. Yeah, really love that movie. Also saw that in theaters in 1998. And then number 1 is The Parent Trap.
Yeah. There we go.
I had a huge crush on Lindsay Lohan. She was around my age when that movie came out, and I just loved that movie so much. My sister watched it religiously, so I've seen that movie an insane number of times in my life. It is up there probably with the movies I've seen the most, thanks to my sister. My wife very, very, very much strongly advocates the original being better, and that's probably one of the biggest things we fight about in our marriage, because I am 100% into the 1998 version, and she likes the 1960s version. Shout out to Lisa Ann Walter from Abbott Elementary, who's great in that movie, Natasha Richardson, Dennis Quaid, but it is a complete star turn for Lindsay Lohan, of course, and I would like to see that movie again. I think it's weird because for watching it like hundreds of times as a kid, it's been a very long time since I've seen it, but I have a feeling it would hold up for me.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good list. Geoff, you watched that for the first time recently-ish, right?
I did. We watched it together a few years back, and I loved it.
Did you like it as an adult, seeing it for the first time?
Really, really dug it.
Yeah,
I thought it was
good.
super duper charming.
Good. It is. It's yeah. And my sister still quotes so many lines from that to this day.
Better movie twin, Lindsay Lohan or Michael B. Jordan?
Oh man. I mean, I loved Michael B, but I mean, come on, Annie and Hallie are more different than
for sure.
than the Stack and what is it? Smoke.
Yeah, she had to be British for one.
Yeah, that's right. I'm just picturing Stack and Smoke in The Parent Trap, and Hallie and Annie and Sinners.
No,
one of those situations is far funnier than the other. Oh goodness. All right. Well, I have 3 honorable mentions. Dr. Dolittle, which I liked watching a lot when I was a kid. I have not seen that movie in a very, very, very long time, but I feel like it would still be pretty good. Mulan, which was never like one of my top Disney movies, but it is a Disney movie that I respect. I respect the hell out of it. Mm-hmm. And then a weird movie that no one's ever seen called Run Lola Run, which I had to watch as part of one of my film classes. And I don't know why I love this movie so much, but like I really do. It's literally like, I think it's a German film.
Yep.
And this woman literally like runs for almost the whole movie.
Yeah, she gets stuck in like a time loop kind of deal.
Yeah. It's very interesting, but I love it.
You say that it depends on the crowd when you ask, like, not many people have seen this, because like the average person, probably not. If you go to find like a Letterboxd crowd, they'll be like, that movie is sick, one of the most important movies of that decade, and blah blah blah, guaranteed.
Probably. I guess I don't know if I've watched it since I have been on Letterboxd, so maybe I don't know. I'll have to look, see if I've ever logged it. My number 4 movie is the Rugrats movie. This was like, I was obsessed with it when it came out. Geoff and I watched it not that long ago because Geoff did not watch the Rugrats growing up.
Nope.
And
wow.
Yeah. And so when we got Paramount Plus, this is probably back in like 2020 or whatever, we did a complete watch of all of the Rugrats.
Oh my gosh.
We did the Rugrats. We did Hey Arnold. We did
Rocko's
Modern Life.
Great.
Yeah. We did Doug. So
I feel like we're going to have to sidebar on this after the podcast. But
oh yeah.
So anyway, of course I had him watch the first Rugrats movie as well, because I feel like it's just puts a pin in everything so nicely.
It does.
Yeah, I was obsessed with that movie. I feel like, I used to like sob when Tommy like didn't want Dill, and he would like leave him in the cave for the monkeys to take. It's so sad.
Not to hijack your list, but I think this is a perfect example of the difference in our age, because I loved Rugrats, but by the time 1998 rolled around, I was like moving out of Rugrats territory.
Yeah, that's fair.
And so I didn't like, I don't remember even, I think I did see the movie, but I was kind of like, I'm too cool for this.
Yeah. Well, and I was like, I don't know, 7 or 8. So
yeah, you were right in the sweet
like
spot
7.
there.
Yeah, like I don't actually know what the target like age range for Rugrats was supposed to be, but
I feel like 7 to 10.
Yeah, that's fair. I feel like there's a lot of shows on Nick and Nick Jr. that I watched past when you were probably like what they're probably meant for.
Like in 2020 when you and Geoff binged the entire thing.
Well, yes. I guess it's mostly like the Nick Jr. shows. I feel like I definitely watched when I was older, like Franklin and like Little Bear.
I mean, my son likes Franklin, so
yeah.
I used to really love watching them, but I know I was too old and I didn't really have an excuse because I didn't have any younger siblings. So I was like, these shows are calming and fun. Anyways, my number 3 is Practical Magic, which is a movie I actually didn't watch for the first time until just a couple years ago. Geoff and I watched it one Halloween season, and I totally understand why people love that movie. I love that movie. It just kind of like, even though I've only seen it a handful of times, it feels like I've watched it all my life.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, I don't know. I just love it.
That's a great shout. Sequel coming out this year.
Yeah, I don't feel things about that. I mean, obviously I don't have a super strong attachment to the original, but I just feel like you can't remake that magic, pun intended.
Hey.
You can't practically remake the magic.
Oh man.
All right, you tried a little hard there.
All right, move along.
All right. My number 2, The Parent Trap.
Yay.
Ben already gushed about. I don't have too much more to say besides the fact that it's just an incredible movie that definitely stands the test of time. And then also similar to Ben, my number 1 is The Truman Show, which I feel like I actually watched that like relatively close to when it came out, which is kind of weird considering my age, but I have just loved it ever since I saw it. And there was a long stretch where I hadn't seen it, kind of like those years where it probably wasn't on TV anymore, but like streaming wasn't a thing. And you like, if you didn't own it, you couldn't watch it. And I remember for a long time thinking that not that I like made this movie up, but like, I would be like, I kind of vaguely remember this movie where this guy was, living his life, but it was fake. And then people would be like, what are you talking about? I'm like, no, it's a movie, I swear. Anyways, such a great movie. Geoff, we're going to have to rewatch it.
Yeah, I'm excited to.
It won't qualify for this podcast since we've all seen it.
That's fine.
Unfortunately.
I remember I was going to rewatch it around, I think it was Barbie, because Greta Gerwig talked about during the press tour Barbie that The Truman Show was one of her biggest influences with that movie. So I'm like, which I can see now thinking about it. So yeah, definitely down to rewatch it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Well, that's the end of my list. And that brings us to the end of our Saving Private Ryan episode. If you would like to watch along with us, we are going to be doing a hard right on the movie category. And we are going to be watching Rat Race, which was that from the 90s or the early 2000s?
I think 2001, because I just looked it up recently.
Oh, okay. I was going to say another 90s movie, but not quite.
Inching forward in time here.
90s in spirit.
Yeah. Exactly. Very close. Very close. So be sure to watch along with us and tune in next week. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving us a rating or review, and be sure to follow us on all our social channels. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see y'all next week.
To infinity and beyond!
Why so serious?
I am serious, and don't call me Shook.
We're not worthy! We're not worthy!
Keep the change, you filthy animal.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
I said it before and I'll say it again. Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.